which is an excerpt of text from a book written by a gentleman named Douglas Brinkley. And the book was written a few years ago, and the book is titled Wilderness Warrior. And in this book, there are quotes from Theodore Roosevelt written in 1901, just before he became president. And this particular section in this book talks about hunters, but hunters serving as field naturalists. Mm-hmm. So it goes on here to say, Roosevelt says, wherever possible, hunters should keep a notebook and should carefully study and record the habits of the wild creatures, especially when in some remote regions to which trained scientific observers but rarely have access. So that's that idea of we're not able to be everywhere all of the time, right? So taking advantage of folks that are on site or interested or available to be in those remote locations and bringing data back to us. So the author's interpretation of this is that Roosevelt wanted everyday citizens to partake in inventorying the nation's natural resources.
So that was 1901?
That was 1901 when Vice President Roosevelt at that point wrote those lines.
Wow. So this notion of us working together to learn and understand things is certainly one that we may have digital tools to make it happen better, but the notion's been around a much, much longer time.
It seems so.
That's really fascinating. Did any of that happen until recently? Was it just a nice idea?
You know, I think the idea of citizens involved in collecting data has been going on for quite some time. And if you just look at something like a breeding bird census, where there are amateur and professional ornithologists all across the country collecting data on an annual basis. And those kinds of bird counts have been going on for many decades.
So I think most people have heard of the Audubon Christmas bird count, right? And I think there's a couple of others that they do as well.
Yes.
And those data sets were referred to as shoebox data sets, where people would make on their own their individual observations about what birds are at their feeder at a particular date. And there are some efforts in the citizen science world to gather up those, especially when they're decadal databases, those notebooks, and try to infer some trends from it.
What, shoebox data?
Shoebox data.
I love that word.
Yeah.
That's kind of where someone's been taking notes, sitting at their bird feeder. But it's amazing how much information is out there. When you think about citizen scientists and data, what kind of parameters do you use? Is there extra training? Is the different kinds of data suitable for different kinds of things?
The idea here is that there's a protocol to meet every need, I guess you could say. And so there's a lot of time and effort that typically goes into designing a set of protocols.
Could you